My name is Elena Reyes, and at my father's 60th birthday party, my half sister introduced me as the family's black sheep. Her boss, standing beside her, just offered a tight lipped smile and then delivered a line that brought the entire party to a halt. The air in the Boulder backyard was thick with the scent of propane from the grill and cheap rosé. Blue and silver balloons for Dad's big 6-0 bobbed listlessly above the mismatched patio furniture. Everyone was wearing those tight practice smiles, the kind that don't quite reach the eyes. Everyone except for me. I was standing near the over-watered hydrangeas, arms crossed, just watching my half-sister, Chloe. She was my father's daughter with his second wife, Karen, and she was currently parading her boss around the yard like a show pony. She hooked her arm through his, a proprietary gesture, and announced to the entire gathered family, "And this," she said, her voice dripping with condescension, "is the black sheep of our family, Elena." A ripple of uncomfortable laughter followed. Karen's was a sharp, bird-like titter. My father's was a deep, rumbling chuckle that felt like a punch to the gut. A few cousins nodded along, their eyes filled with a mixture of pity and morbid curiosity. Every single gaze in that yard swiveled to me. The clatter of plastic cutlery on paper plates ceased. Even the nervous chatter died down. The world seemed to hold its breath. Her boss, David Harrison, remained perfectly still. His hands were tucked into the pockets of his slacks, and he was studying the family's reactions with an unnerving intensity. Then he tilted his head slightly, a faint, almost imperceptible smile touching his lips. "That's an interesting introduction," he said, his voice calm and even, cutting through the silence. He then turned his cool gaze back to Chloe. "Because your employment is terminated, effective immediately." Chloe's triumphant grin froze on her face, cracking like cheap porcelain. The entire yard went so utterly still, you could have heard a pin drop on the manicured lawn. Have you ever been publicly shamed by the very people who are supposed to protect you? By the family that was meant to be your safe harbor? If you have, share your story in the comments. I promise. I read every single one. I pulled into the driveway of the old house in Boulder, the one my father had kept all these years. It was a monument to a life I barely recognized. The porch light, I noticed, still had that same annoying flicker, and the old metal mailbox was still listing to one side like a tired old man. I popped the trunk, grabbed a stack of flattened cardboard boxes, and pushed my way inside. The screen door gave a familiar, mournful creak behind me. My mother's things were stacked in a corner of the spare bedroom, a sad pyramid of boxes, each one meticulously labeled in her elegant, looping handwriting. I knelt on the dusty floorboards and began the archaeology of her life. I sorted through old, faded recipe cards, their corners softened with use. I flipped through photo albums, the plastic pages crinkling, revealing ghosts of happier times. I found a silk scarf she used to wear every autumn, and for a moment I could almost smell her perfume. It was then, tucked inside a hollowed-out book of poetry, that I found it. A small, sleek, external hard drive. It had no label, just a tiny silver device I'd never seen in my life. A knot of curiosity and dread formed in my stomach. I sat right there on the floor amid the relics of my mother's life and plugged it into my laptop. The screen flickered to life. Files appeared. Campaign briefs, mood boards, a whole library of taglines and marketing strategies I had written, poured my soul into, nearly 6 years ago for a geothermal energy client. My stomach plummeted. I clicked through them, my horror growing with each file. Every single one had been reused, not just inspired by, but copied, word for word, image for image. But the credit, the byline, was attributed to someone else at Denver News, 7. That someone else was my half-sister, Chloe Vance. My father's daughter with his second wife, Karen. Leo Vance, their youngest, was 20 now, away at a state university for most of the year. But growing up, it was always Chloe and Leo who basked in the family spotlight. I was the leftover, the relic from my father's first marriage. the one they put up with but never truly accepted. My mom, my real mom, Isabel, died when I was 16. It was breast cancer, and it was fast and it was cruel. One day she was in the kitchen, patiently teaching me the secret to her famous green chili stew, her laughter echoing off the tiles. The next, she was just gone. An empty space at the dinner table. My father remarried Karen just 6 months later. It felt like a betrayal, a rewriting of our history. Karen arrived with Chloe, who was 10 at the time, a bundle of bouncy curls and unshakable confidence. Leo came along 2 years after that. From the absolute beginning, it was clear that there were 2 sets of rules in that house. Chloe got ballet lessons, a new wardrobe every season, and for her 16th birthday, a sleek black convertible was parked in the driveway, right where my rusty pickup truck now stood. I got her hand-me-downs and a bus pass. I remember watching from my bedroom window as Karen packed Chloe's school lunches, cutting her sandwiches into heart shapes and tucking in little encouraging notes. My lunch, which I made myself, was usually a squished peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a bruised apple. My father, Robert, never intervened. He never corrected the imbalance. He would ruffle Chloe's perfect hair and say, "That's my star," while I was outside mowing the lawn or washing the family car to earn a few dollars for gas. When I was 15 and my teeth were a mess of crooked angles, I desperately needed braces. Karen sat me down and explained with a sigh that the family budget was just too tight. 2 months later, Chloe was fitted for Invisalign. I learned a valuable lesson early on. Asking for anything only resulted in a heavy, suffocating silence. So, I stopped asking. College was the real breaking point. I had worked my tail off in high school and had been accepted to the University of Colorado Boulder with a partial academic scholarship. It was my dream, but my father sat me down in his study, the smell of leather and old books filling the air, and told me that money was tight. Karen wanted to send Chloe to a prestigious private high school, and now, it turned out, Leo needed braces too. My scholarship didn't cover room and board, so if I wanted to go, I'd have to commute over an hour each way on the public bus. I tried. God, I tried. For 2 semesters, I did it. I'd catch the 6 a.m. bus, work a night shift at a greasy diner after my classes, and usually fall into bed around 2 a.m., only to do it all over again. I was a walking zombie. Meanwhile, Chloe, in her fancy private school, complained about the cafeteria food. My father would brag to his friends about her debate team victories while I was at the diner, my clothes smelling of stale coffee and fried onions, carrying trays of food to strangers. When I finally had to drop out, utterly exhausted and broke, to work full-time, I overheard Karen telling a neighbor that I just couldn't handle the academic pressure. My father just stood there and nodded in agreement. I moved out when I was 19 into a cramped studio apartment above a noisy laundromat. There was no goodbye party, no offer to help with the first month's rent. Chloe sent me a single text message. "Guess you're really on your own now. Good luck." Leo was only a little boy then, maybe 7, but even he seemed to understand the dynamic. He just waved sadly from the front window as I loaded my 1 duffel bag and a box of books into my friend's beat-up car. Years went by. I built a life for myself, brick by painful brick, from absolute nothing. Chloe, meanwhile, coasted on a sea of privilege. Leo just watched it all, a quiet, observant presence in the background. When I did visit, which wasn't often, Karen would make separate dinners. A perfectly cooked steak for her precious daughter and a can of lukewarm soup for me. My father, Robert, ran the local community fund, always giving these grand speeches at charity events about the importance of family values, all while completely ignoring the existence of the daughter who was paying her own way through life without a single dollar of his help. The hard drive was still connected to my laptop, its contents glowing on the screen. It was irrefutable proof in black and white. Every single creative idea I had poured my heart and soul into in that tiny, lonely apartment, every late night fueled by cheap coffee, Every meal I had skipped to make rent, it had all been stolen. Stolen and used by the sister who had been handed everything on a silver platter. I closed the laptop, the screen going dark. I stared at the hollowed-out book in my hand. My mother had kept this. She had hidden it. She must have known, or at least suspected, what was happening, and she had left me the key. The next morning, I called Maya. Maya Chen had been my reluctant roommate during that first awful semester of college, the one who taught me how to make $5 last an entire week. She answered on the second ring, her voice raspy from what was probably a late-night coding session. I told her I needed her help with something digital. I didn't give her any details. She just said, "Come on over, I'll put the coffee on." Her apartment was perched above a motorcycle repair shop on the grittier side of downtown Denver, about a 30-minute drive from Boulder. I parked my truck behind a mountain of used tires and climbed the rickety metal staircase. She opened the door wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt, her hair piled into a messy bun. She handed me a ceramic mug that read, "World's Okayest Hacker." We sat at her small kitchen table, my laptop sitting between us like a ticking bomb. I slid the hard drive across the worn wooden surface. She raised a skeptical eyebrow but plugged it in without a word. The files loaded. She began to scroll, her eyes sharp and intelligent, narrowing with each passing second. After a few minutes, she let out a low, impressed whistle. "These are yours, aren't they?" she said. It wasn't a question. I just nodded, a lump forming in my throat. Every last one. She leaned back in her chair, folding her arms across her chest. Her expression was grim. "You want me to trace the metadata, don't you? See where they went?" "That's exactly why I'm here," I said. Maya worked with a focused intensity that was almost frightening. She pulled up timestamps, cross-referenced file paths, and matched a dozen tiny details, from font families to hexadecimal color codes. By the time our coffee had gone cold, she had constructed a detailed, irrefutable timeline. 6 years of my creative work, uploaded to the servers of Denver News 7, all under Chloe Vance's employee login credentials. The same Chloe who thought I was still slinging hash at a diner. I just stared at the screen, the data blurring in front of my eyes. My first real break in the industry had come when I was 21, doing freelance design work for a small solar panel installer just outside Aspen. The owner paid me in cash and occasionally a full tank of gas. I had designed a community awareness campaign for him that was so successful it won a local business award. Word started to spread. More gigs followed. Wind farms, geothermal startups, energy consulting firms. I taught myself how to write a pitch, how to negotiate a contract, how to close a deal. At 24, I officially registered Solstice Media Group, operating out of a single rented desk in a co-working space in Lodo. One desk, one chair, one fiercely protected dream. I hired my first employee 6 months later, a junior copywriter who quit after 3 weeks. I didn't blame him. Payroll was late, rent was due, and my diet consisted almost entirely of instant ramen. But the work, slowly, started to come in more consistently. I landed a statewide energy conservation contract and then a major rebranding project for a midstream oil and gas giant. My revenue hit 6 figures. Then, a year later, 7. I moved the office to a spacious loft near the ballpark, hired a real team, and bought actual, new furniture. By the time I was 30, Solstice Media Group was pulling in over $15 million a year, serving major energy clients from Houston to Calgary. I kept it all quiet. No flashy social media posts, no updates to the family. My dad asked me once, dismissively, what I was doing for a living. I just said, marketing. He grunted and immediately changed the subject to Chloe's latest promotion. Karen just assumed I was barely scraping by. And Chloe? She was always bragging about her producer title at the station, never once bothering to look at the parent company listed on her pay stub, Solstice Media Group. David Harrison ran the Denver branch. I had hired him myself 3 years ago after he brilliantly turned a failing pipeline safety campaign into a nationally recognized, award-winning project. He was sharp, intensely loyal, and had zero ego. He reported directly to me, handled all the local hires, and approved the regional budgets. Chloe had started there as a segment producer about a year ago. It was an entry-level, low-stakes position. She was working for my company under my payroll without having the slightest clue that I owned it. Maya finally closed the laptop. "You built an entire empire, Elena," she said, her voice soft, "and your sister has been picking its pockets this whole time." I rubbed my temples, a dull ache starting to throb behind my eyes. The data didn't lie. Chloe had access because Denver News 7 was a Solstice subsidiary. She had logged in with her generic employee credentials, copied my old project folders, stripped a few key pieces of metadata, and passed them off as her own brilliant ideas. David never would have caught it. Why would he? She was just another junior staffer submitting content for approval. I thought about all those late nights in that first lonely office, the 2 a.m. calls with clients in different time zones, the pitch decks I had to rebuild from scratch after my old computer crashed. Every single victory, big or small, had been mine and mine alone. There was no family money, no safety net. It was just me, a secondhand laptop, and a stubborn refusal to fail. Maya poured me another cup of coffee. "So," she said, her eyes meeting mine, "what's the plan?" I looked out her window at the glittering Denver skyline. "Now," I said, a cold resolve hardening in my chest. "Now I decide how this story ends." Chloe texted me that afternoon. Her message popped up on my screen while I was still at Maya's, staring out at the city. "Family BBQ this weekend at the house. Bring a nice bottle of wine. David's coming." I read it twice, my thumbs hovering over the keyboard. A nice bottle of wine, as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't been publicly humiliated and fired in front of our entire family. I set the phone down and reopened the files on my laptop. Maya had exported all the evidence into a spreadsheet, endless columns of dates, file names, IP addresses, and user IDs. The earliest upload was traced back almost 6 years to the week right after I had completed that successful awareness campaign for the solar installer in Aspen. The client had been thrilled and had asked for printed materials for all their site offices. Chloe must have seen the mock-ups. I remembered emailing my dad a proud note with a few photos of the finished designs attached. Scrolling further, I found the pipeline rebranding project I had pitched to a Houston firm. The same color palette, the exact same tagline, now presented as Chloe's original concept in a news segment that had aired on Denver News 7. Another folder contained a fracking safety series I had developed for a nonprofit grant application. She had simply replaced my stock images with some local B-roll footage and aired it under her name, taking full credit. Maya leaned over my shoulder, pointing at the screen. "She didn't even bother to change the original file names," she muttered, shaking her head. "It's sloppy, Elena. Contemptuously sloppy." I pulled up the server logs. Chloe's login credentials appeared almost nightly, usually after 11 p.m., the same hours she'd always claimed to be working late on important edits. She would download my old project folders, rename a few key files to throw off any basic tracking, strip the creation dates, and then upload everything to the station's shared production drive. David Harrison had access to that same system, but he never would have cross-checked the credits on every single piece of content submitted by his junior producers. He had no reason to. I cross-referenced each stolen campaign with its air date. Every single one of my stolen ideas had aired within a week of her after-hours uploads. The station's ratings for those segments soared. Sponsors renewed their contracts. Chloe earned bonuses, a promotion, and eventually a coveted corner cubicle with a view of the mountains. Meanwhile, I had been invoicing my clients directly, building Solstice from the ground up, piece by agonizing piece. One file in particular made my blood boil. It was a 30-second public service announcement. I had spent 3 solid weeks crafting it, sourcing footage from 3 different states, and meticulously syncing the voiceover to the latest safety statistics. Chloe had aired it verbatim. The only change she made was to add a cheap, canned laugh track at the very end, turning my serious work into a joke. The client, ironically, had later called to praise our team's fresh and innovative approach. I had thanked them, assuming David had shared the credit with his local team, as was standard practice. I opened the original project brief. My signature was there, at the bottom, dated. Chloe's aired version bore a new footer, produced by Chloe Vance, Denver News 7. There was no mention of Solstice Media Group, no mention of me. Maya exported all the evidence into a secure, encrypted folder and then backed it up on 3 separate drives. "This is ironclad," she said, handing me one of the drives. "Intellectual property theft, felony-level plagiarism, breach of contract. She's toast." I nodded, my mind already racing ahead. Chloe thought David Harrison was her mentor, her golden ticket to the top. She had no idea he was my employee, no idea that the station she worked at operated entirely under my company's umbrella. And she certainly had no idea that the brilliant ideas she was so proud of were actually mine. I closed the laptop. The invitation to the barbecue still glowed on my phone screen. Chloe wanted to play Happy Families. She wanted to show off her mentor to Dad and Karen. Perfect. I typed back a short reply. Of course. I'll bring my laptop. The backyard filled up quickly. My dad, Robert, was manning the grill, the smoke curling up towards the same tired blue and silver balloons from his birthday. Karen was bustling around, arranging platters of potato salad and coleslaw on the picnic tables, periodically wiping her hands on an apron that read, "Kiss the Cook." Leo was slouched in a lawn chair, scrolling through his phone, but he glanced up and gave me a small, hesitant wave. Chloe was the star of the show, floating between groups of relatives, laughing a little too loudly, clutching a bottle of beer like it was a prop. Her perfect curls bounced with every exaggerated movement. I carried my laptop bag over my shoulder. The nice bottle of wine I was supposed to bring was still in my truck, forgotten. David Harrison arrived looking crisp and professional in a navy blazer. He shook my father's hand and gave a polite nod to Karen. Chloe immediately latched onto his arm, steering him toward the main table, her voice cutting through the general chatter. "Everyone, this is my amazing boss, David Harrison," she announced. "He's the one who recognized my talent. He's the reason I'm absolutely killing it at the station." My father clapped him on the back. "We hear great things. Our Chloe, she's a real star." Karen beamed. Finally, someone who recognizes real talent when they see it. I walked over to the table, set my laptop down, flipped it open, and hit the play button. The screen lit up, displaying 2 windows side by side. On the left, my original design briefs. On the right, Chloe's aired television segments. The fonts matched perfectly. The taglines were identical. The timestamps glowed in a damning shade of red, showing the exact dates and times of the uploads, all under Chloe's login. The background noise of the party faded into a dull hum. Forks froze halfway to mouths. A cousin stopped mid-sentence, a forkful of potato salad dangling in the air. Chloe's brilliant smile faltered. What is this?" David leaned closer to the screen, his expression hardening with every click as he scrolled through the evidence. My father squinted, confused. Karen's hand flew to her mouth and she began twisting her apron nervously. I kept my voice perfectly level. "That," I said, my gaze fixed on Chloe, "is 6 years of my work, stolen by you and aired under your name." Chloe lunged for the laptop. "Turn it off." "That's private." David stepped smoothly between us, blocking her. "Private?" he said, his voice sharp and clear. "This is company property." He looked around at the stunned faces at the table. "And for the record, I don't run Denver News 7. I manage the Denver branch for its parent company, Solstice Media Group." Karen blinked. "Solstice what?" My father frowned. "Never heard of them." David turned to me, his expression calm and deliberate. Elena owns the parent company. I report directly to her. The silence that followed was absolute, a heavy, crushing weight. Leo dropped his phone, the screen shattering on the flagstone patio. My father's barbecue tongs clattered onto the grill, sending a shower of sparks into the evening air. Karen's platter of coleslaw slipped from her grasp, splattering across the pristine grass. Chloe spun around to face me, her face completely drained of color. "You," she stammered. "You're my boss?" I met her terrified gaze. "I always have been." David pulled a folder from the inside pocket of his blazer. Inside were printed logs, highlighted uploads, and full metadata reports. He handed copies to my father, to Karen, and to any other family member with a trembling hand brave enough to reach for the truth. "Intellectual property theft, plagiarism, breach of contract," he stated, his voice ringing with authority. "Effective immediately. Chloe Vance's employment is terminated. Security will escort you from all Solstice facilities on Monday morning." Chloe's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. The beer bottle slipped from her numb fingers, the foam spreading across the tablecloth like a stain. My father finally found his voice. "Elena, you built all this?" I gave a single slow nod, watching as the papers were passed from hand to hand. A cousin whispered to another, her eyes wide with disbelief. Leo picked up his shattered phone, staring at the spiderweb of cracks on the screen. Karen looked back and forth between the documents and me, as if she were seeing a complete stranger in familiar skin. "How long?" she whispered. "Long enough," I replied. David faced Chloe. "Have your desk cleared out by Monday. HR will mail you your final paycheck, minus the restitution costs for the campaigns you fraudulently misrepresented." Chloe stumbled backward, the beer stain darkening the front of her white shirt. "This is a joke. You can't do this." David's voice was like ice. "I just did." The grill hissed, unattended, the meat charring and turning to black. The balloon swayed gently in the breeze. No one moved to comfort her. The cousin shifted awkwardly, suddenly finding the ground fascinating. Leo just hugged his knees, silent. I closed my laptop, the screen fading to black. My father cleared his throat, but no words came. Karen was trying to wipe coleslaw off her shoes, her cheeks flushed with shame. Chloe stood alone in the center of the yard, the party dissolving around her. David pocketed his folder. "I'll handle the paperwork," he said quietly to me. I slung my laptop bag over my shoulder and walked towards the gate, not looking back. My father knocked the next evening. I opened the door to find him standing on my porch, his suit rumpled, his tie loosened. He was holding a thick manila envelope, its edges crisp and new. "We need to talk," he said, stepping past me into the apartment without waiting for an invitation. I closed the door and leaned against it, my arms crossed. He began to pace my small living room, tapping the envelope against his thigh. "Chloe is devastated," he started. "That misunderstanding at the barbecue? It wasn't a misunderstanding, Dad." He stopped pacing and faced me, his expression pleading. "She's your sister, Elena. She's family. You can't just ruin her entire life over some old computer files." I didn't flinch. "She ruined herself." He placed the envelope on my coffee table. "This is $300,000. It's an early inheritance from your grandmother's estate. Take it, drop all of this, and let David reinstate her." I stared at the envelope. Even from across the room, the paper looked heavy, important. "You think money can fix intellectual property theft?" "It can fix this," he said, nudging it closer with his finger. "It can buy silence. Sign a non-disclosure agreement. Say the campaigns were a collaboration. Everyone can walk away from this clean." I picked up the envelope. I could feel the weight of the cashier's check inside. "Where did you get this?" He hesitated for a fraction of a second. "Savings, some investments I have." Just then, the doorbell rang again. I checked the small camera feed. It was Leo. I buzzed him in. He brushed past my father, his face pale, clutching his phone. "I have to show you something," he said, his voice trembling. My father's eyes narrowed. "Leo, go home. This doesn't concern you." Leo ignored him, setting his phone on the table. He pulled up a document, a grainy photo of a bank statement, a charity ledger, a wire transfer record. "I volunteer at the Children's Arts Fund, the one Dad manages," Leo said, his voice shaking. "Last year, $100,000 went missing from the general fund." My father lunged for the phone. "Turn that off!" Leo swiped the screen. "It went to Chloe's condo down payment. I found the wire transfer. It was marked consulting fee. It was processed the same day she closed on her place." I tore open the envelope. The check inside wasn't from a personal savings account. It was drawn directly from the charity's primary account. My father's signature was scrawled at the bottom. He backed away towards the door, his face ashen. "This is a private family matter." Leo stood his ground. "Embezzlement isn't a private matter, Dad." I held up the check. "You stole money from a children's art scholarship to bail out your favorite daughter." His face flushed with a deep, ugly red. "I was protecting my daughter." "Which one?" I asked quietly. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Leo's phone buzzed, another document loaded, an audit trail, a notification to the board of directors, pending. My dad grabbed his coat. "You will regret this, both of you," he snarled and slammed the door behind him. Leo sank onto my couch, burying his face in his hands. I didn't know what else to do. I tore the check in half, then into quarters, letting the pieces flutter to the floor like confetti at a funeral. The messages started flooding in. Chloe's texts came first, a desperate, frantic barrage. "Elena, please, I'm so sorry. Delete the files. We're sisters. We can fix this." Then came the voicemails, her voice cracking with a mix of tears and rage. "If you don't stop this, I'll tell everyone you're a jealous, unstable psycho. You'll lose all your clients. Solstice will collapse." I read the first one, then blocked her number. The calls and texts turned into emails, long, rambling paragraphs about family loyalty, about how Dad had raised us, about how I owed them. She even attached screenshots of social media posts she had drafted, ready to go. My toxic sister sabotaged my career out of pure spite. Family betrayal, beware Solstice Media. The hashtags were ready to trend. My father's letter arrived by certified mail, a thick envelope bearing the charity's letterhead. Inside was a formal typed plea. "Withdraw your claims, sign the attached waiver, or we will go public with the truth. Your company was built on lies. You used your mother's death as an excuse to alienate us. Your clients will flee. You will be ruined." I skimmed the attached waiver, a non-disclosure, a full retraction, a complete release of all claims. The threat was underlined in red ink. "Refuse, and we will expose everything. Your reputation will be over." Leo emailed next. The subject line just said, "Please listen." "Chloe is desperate. Dad is scared. Just delete the evidence and we can all just forget this ever happened. I'll visit. We can talk like we used to. You're still my sister." I forwarded everything, the texts, the emails, the threatening letter, to my lawyer, Elena Vargas. She called me within an hour. "This is textbook defamation, coercion, and emotional manipulation," she said, her voice crisp and no nonsense. "We'll file a cease and desist order today." Elena drafted the letter on her firm's official stationery. "Any further contact, public posts, or statements violating non-disparagement clauses will result in immediate legal action for libel, slander, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Cease and desist immediately." I signed it. She sent certified copies to my father, Karen, Chloe, and Leo. No response was required. Chloe's online smear campaign started anyway. A handful of anonymous accounts began tagging Solstice clients. Heard the CEO of Solstice Media steals ideas from her own family. Fraud alert. A few likes trickled in, then a few shares. A couple of my smaller clients emailed me asking for clarification. I simply replied with a copy of Elena's legal letter. The online chatter died overnight. My father tried one last time, a voicemail from a blocked number. "You're tearing this family apart, Elena. Think about Leo. He looks up to you." I deleted it without listening to the end. Leo showed up at my office building lobby, his eyes red and swollen. Security called down to my office. He was holding a cup of coffee. "Can we just talk?" he asked, his voice small. "Just us?" I looked at his pained face and felt a pang of my old life, but I shook my head. "There are no more talks, Leo." He left the coffee on the security counter. I blocked his number too. Then the house in Boulder appeared on Zillow. My father's name was still on the deed. Karen's car was in the driveway in the photos. I packed up my apartment, donated most of my furniture, and hired movers. The new office in Seattle was waiting, a new branch, a clean start. My father's final letter was forwarded to me. Inside were the terms of his probation. At the bottom, he had scrawled, "I'm sorry, please forgive me." I fed it to the office shredder. Chloe's last email was short. "You win, I'm nothing." I marked it as spam. Leo's last text came from a new number. "I miss you." Deleted. The moving truck pulled away at dawn. Boulder faded in the rearview mirror, the suburbs, the mountains, the family home. The Seattle skyline rose ahead, the buildings sharp and new against a gray sky. I changed my number. I updated all my company contacts. No more Vances in my inbox. A few clients did pull back. 2 smaller contracts were canceled, citing reputational risk. But most of them stayed, especially after my lawyer's letter made the rounds. Revenue dipped about 5%. Then it stabilized and began to climb again. Solstice endured. Chloe's name vanished from industry directories. She was blacklisted. No station in the country would touch her resume. The IP theft flagged every single background check. The last I heard, she was working in retail, stocking shelves. Her condo went into foreclosure, and she moved into a tiny studio apartment near the airport, her new neighbors completely unaware of her past. My father faced the board. The audit was brutal. Embezzlement charges followed. He took a plea deal, 3 years probation, full restitution, and community service at the very children's art fund he had stolen from. He had to wear an ankle monitor on his trips to the grocery store. He was banned from all charity events for life. Karen filed for separation, citing irreconcilable differences. She got the house, and the first thing she did was sell Chloe's black convertible. My father rented a bare, 1-bedroom apartment downtown. Leo transferred to a university in Oregon and kept his distance from everyone. From Seattle, I watched it all unfold from a safe distance. My new office overlooked Puget Sound, the ferries gliding silently across the water below. The team expanded to 20. Our contracts grew, diversifying into renewables and new tech integrations. 15 million became 20. Chloe's final LinkedIn post just read, "Open to new opportunities." She had no connections. My father's probation officer checked in with him monthly. No violations. He volunteered quietly at food banks. Karen started selling their furniture on Facebook Marketplace. The photos showed empty, hollow rooms. One evening, I stood on the balcony of my new apartment, watching the city lights flicker to life across the water. There were no more messages, no more threats, just peace. Cutting ties with them wasn't an act of revenge. It was an act of release. Chloe learned that actions have consequences that ripple outward. My father learned that privilege has its limits. Karen learned that loyalty, when blind, is just another word for enabling. For anyone out there watching this, family is not a suicide pact. It's not an obligation to endure abuse. Protect your work, protect your peace, protect your future. Blood is not an excuse for betrayal. Walk away when you have to. Rebuild yourself, stronger and smarter. Cutting those ties wasn't losing a family. It was gaining my freedom. And that is the truth I live by now. And it is more than enough.